Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. Welcome today to the very last of the reviews of the watches that I bought in the March anniversary AliExpress sale. I did go a bit nuts. I spent 1,000 Aussie dollars on watches. I ended up with so many that I'm only just now finishing the reviews of the pieces that I bought. This one has featured in an unboxing before, but I thought I'd come back today with a full review including heaps of macro footage of the dial. This one really is all about the dial. It's essentially just another 6105810 Captain Willard lookalike, but for $20 more than all the others because of this dial. Steeldive refer to it as a breeze across a calm lake. I reckon it looks a little bit more like a dried out salt flat. What do you think? What do you see? Leave me a comment, let me know, and let me know if you like what you see and would like to see it on your wrist. This one cost me $100 or very close to it. I'll leave a link to the shop that I got it from in the description of the video if you do indeed see something that you like here today. Let's flip the camera and get on with it. And I guess that's their pitch then really, isn't it? A Willard lookalike but with a funky dial and a cool looking bezel insert. When I unboxed this thing a couple of months ago, it was the bezel insert that initially caught my eye. But having owned the watch now and worn it for a bit, the dials are actually quite nice. It's a funny colour, it kind of drifts from white to silver to champagne to grey and then back again, but I've never seen anything like it on a watch for less than $100 before. Perhaps this is going to be the new frontier on AliExpress over the next couple of years. Manufacturers pushing the boundaries in terms of what you can expect from a dial on an ultra affordable watch. What you can expect from the packaging of an ultra affordable watch is pretty much one of these 50-cent plastic flight cases. They always do the job though. There's lots of padding, the watch always arrives in good shape, and they don't take up a lot of space in your cupboard. I don't really mind them at all. And that's what you get as well, some pointless paraphernalia, a hang tag and a watch. And this set of dimensions and specifications should be very familiar to you if you have bought a Steeldive 1970. Some of these dimensions though are more important than others, so some I'm going to overemphasize and some I'm going to de-emphasize. Now rather surprisingly, one that you shouldn't overly concern yourself with today is the diameter. It is 44mm, but it just doesn't wear like a big watch because it has a classic Seiko cushion case that disguises that diameter beautifully. Thickness is 13.2, but again, don't worry about that. You'll see it on my wrist later. Lug to lug is 46.8, another classic Seiko trait. Big case, short lug to lug, wears great. 20mm between the lugs, there's a slight taper down to 18 and back up to 20 at the clasp, but the weight is definitely a consideration on the bracelet. 170 grams sized up for me. So it's a big watch that sits on the wrist like a small watch but has the weight of a big watch. Water resistance is 200 meters, crystal is flat sapphire, and no surprises, this one is Seiko NH35 powered. The NH35 is 24 joule hacking and hand winding and is the movement of choice for under $400 US, never mind under $100 US. It's a standard looking case back on this one, screw down, stainless steel and featuring various bits of dive paraphernalia fashioned into a logo of sorts. Note how on the back there's an apostrophe in divers. Note also that is a bit of a furphy, this watch is not ISO rated. It does, however, have a lovely case, circular brushed upper surfaces, circular brushed bezel insert, but super smooth, curved, high polished sides of the case, and a very neat transition into the back surface where that case back nestles. Now the crown is fully guarded at the 415, but still remains relatively easy to operate. It also features that bits and pieces logo, perhaps a little bit too complicated to fit on a crown though. The coin edge bezel is high polished but still offers just enough grip. 120 click unidirectional by the way. Mine is a little bit stiff out the box, but always better a little bit too stiff than a little bit too floppy, isn't it? The bracelet is dull with a capital D. 3-link oyster style with solid end links and solid links, push pins holding those links together by the way. It isn't a great bracelet to be honest. There's a lot of play here and the clasp is a bit of a donkey. It's the cheapest of its type. It's pressed upper, pressed lower, 3 holes of micro adjust and unbranded. A whole $2 of the budget went into that clasp, I will wager. You can buy something a little better on Ali for $7 or $8 though. I've got a small stash of them in the house for watches just like this. I'll leave a link to the clasp in the description as well. But as I said in the intro, I didn't buy this watch for the bracelet, I bought it for the dial. It's a kind of standard SEA-GULL WILLARD layout with that split pentagonal index at 12, large rectangles at 6 and 9, smaller rectangles everywhere else, date complication at the 3 with an applied frame, and very simple, fully loomed, flat, high polished silver baton hands. The only point of interest, apart from the dial surface that is the classic Seiko traffic light paddle tip to the second hand, just a tiny bit of red breaking things up a touch. This watch does feature a fully graded chapter ring, also in brushed stainless steel to match the bezel insert. Interestingly, all the minute marks are the same. There's no thicker or longer 5-minute marks. For those, you're going to have to look beyond the chapter ring to the bezel insert. And the insert is a good one considering the price. I do love a brushed stainless steel bezel myself, and for under $100, this one looks fine. The paint fill is reasonable, and the loom pip sits centrally in that triangle. One more quick look at the dial surface then. Yeah, I definitely think more salt flat or cracked baked earth than ripples or waves. I guess waves over a calm lake sounded better than arid scorched earth to the ALIEXPRESS marketing department. You can't really blame them for that, can you? Loom. Loom has always been a standout feature on these cheap WILLARD lookalikes. They perform better than anything else I've come across for under $100, and this one does perfectly well. Green loom on the hands, blue loom on the dial and the pip. At the end of the test, you can see it's fading, but you can still see it, which is rather the point. Alright then, on wrist shots, starting by looking down the wrist. That short lug to lug wears well on me, chances are it'll wear well on you too. There's plenty of wrist presence as you can see from this low shot. You can also see how the protruding caseback sits nicely into the back of my arm, helping disguise the thickness. The whole thing sits flush. You can also see that nasty clasp, unfortunately. When I pull back and then further back again, it still looks good on my average size wrist. The silver bezel and silver dial do make it look a little less tooly than the standard black dial versions though, I think. Legibility also perhaps not quite as good because of silver hands against the silver dial. So in summary, most people will be comfortable with the diameter dimension because of the short lug to lug. It then comes down to weight preference. Your average 40mm dive watch comes in around 150 grams. This one sits 12% heavier than that at 170 grams, but you do get those extra 4mm of width for your extra 20 grams. Moans and niggles. Well look, let's zoom back a little bit on this one. For $100, it's pretty awesome. Interesting dial, Seiko movement, good loom, sapphire crystal, and a great case shape. But so many people now expect these kind of specifications for $100 because they have experienced the Steeldive 1970. Against the Steeldive, the ALIEXPRESS is more expensive, it's less tooly, and it's less legible, and it still has a crap generic press clasp, whereas the Steeldive has moved on to a branded milled clasp on current models. So I'm going to leave it with you, and I'm going to leave you with another couple of shots of the dial and the bezel insert because I've basically spent the last 8 minutes telling you what I told you in the introduction. If you see enough in these shots to justify spending an extra $20, buy the ALIEXPRESS. If you don't, buy the Steeldive. So there you have it, a WILLARD with a twist. I think there's enough here between the dial and the bezel insert to justify the price over a basic Steeldive version, assuming you like what you see, that is. But I don't see waves, I see cracked earth. But that's okay, I think. If you prefer the simpler and cheaper Steeldive version, click here. Or if you want to watch me pretend that my back garden is the jungle of Vietnam, click here. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. I'll see you again soon.